in recognition of this somber anniversary of the attack on the United States on September 11th, 2001. So if you would join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Okay. The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Is there anyone here for citizens' comments? Okay, I don't see anybody, so I will not read the guidelines for public comment or review the policy for public comments. So the next item on the agenda is the chair's update. So I just have a few things that I just wanted to let the committee know that in July, beginning of July, I attended MASC's Summer Institute, and they had a session on the role of the chair, which I found extremely helpful and useful. Got a lot of good information. But the other thing that was helpful was that I was in a room with other school committee chairs from all over the state, and got some good ideas and learned some things. And one of the things I learned, much to my surprise, is that there are people that are bossier than me. And so I might have to up my game a little bit, but subtly, hopefully. But I'll speak to another thing that came up later on the agenda, but I found it very worthwhile and was happy to see it so well attended. I think it was like July 12th or 13th. It's in Marlborough. It was very good. A reminder about attendance. There are 7 of us. Our quorum is, there should be 8. Our quorum is 5. So please be sure to let me know if you are not going to be able to make a meeting as soon as you know. And if looking ahead, you notice that you have a conflict on your calendar, let me know. Because if we don't have a quorum, we can't meet. And if we miss a meeting, given the heft of our planning calendar, it means we probably have to reschedule a meeting. So that's just a reminder on that. I wanted to make folks aware that on August 19th, the Department of Education released an updated superintendent's rubric. Those of you who have participated or just have an awareness of the rubrics for the evaluation of educators in the state of Massachusetts, there are rubrics for the superintendent, for educators, for administrators. There is a new one. The former one, and those of us who have completed the evaluation before, is very dense, if you will. Several of us expressed concern over some of the things that we were asked to evaluate that we have no visibility to, like evaluation of administrators. That's not within our purview. So this is a new rubric, and what I would like to do is, we don't have to adopt it. Brooke has indicated an interest in using it this year. I think it makes a lot of sense. I would like to send it out to folks to look at. I'll send both so you can see the difference. And I know that Brooke is currently working with the Personnel Subcommittee on her goals. And so there's the superintendent's annual plan. But part of the evaluation process is the identification of indicators from the rubric to also be part of the evaluation. So I just wanted to share that, and we'll send that out to folks. Okay. And just a reminder, I may have said this, and it's probably in the school committee handbook, that many times we get correspondence as a whole committee. And when you see that, please trust that I will respond in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes the contents of that communication is not within our purview, and I let the correspondent know that. But if something in the correspondence concerns you, if you have questions, please get in touch with me, and I will answer any questions that you have. And again, commenting on or responding to issues related to personnel and students is not within the purview of the school committee. Okay, so we have our student representative. Izzy, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
So glad to see you here.
Thank you.
And you have an update for us?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's hear it.
So this is our first full week of school, which we are halfway through, and everyone's kind of starting to get over that initial stress of the week. Yeah. And even the freshmen are finally like getting their schedules down and stuff. So for the sports, we've had an exciting start. Spirit days are in full swing, so the hallways are always filled with girls with face paint and tutus and glitter and all that sort of stuff. Girls volleyball is undefeated, 3-0, and it's really been just a show every game. We keep almost giving our coach a heart attack. The golf team is currently 4-0. Girls soccer is 1-1, and football has their first game this Saturday at noon on the turf at Neshoba. The music department is hoping to host their their annual car wash this Saturday at 9 o'clock in front of the high school. It's $5 per car. There will also be baked goods, and all the proceeds go towards the music department. The center school welcomed 74 kindergarteners and another 24 new students, grades 1 through 5. All students participated in their first all-school meeting on the first day of school, and last night they welcomed the parents at back-to-school night. And in other news, Neshoba has a new ASL club that meets every week on Mondays and Wednesdays. And on Thursday is Neshoba's open house, where the parents get to walk their kids' schedules and meet all the teachers.
Izzy, what is ASL?
American Sign Language.
Oh, wow. And this is a new club?
Yeah, it's run by the choir director and a few of the students.
Excellent. Any questions for Izzy?
Were you finished your report, or did you have more?
That was it.
Okay, just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you, and we appreciate the updates about other things going on at the other schools, and look forward to your future reports. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Superintendent, oh, I'm sorry,
So,
did you have
no, but I want to, because I'm not sure she's going to leave right away, before you walk out the door. I just wanted to ask you, did anything special happen this summer to you?
Yeah. So I was part of the Spartans Drum and Bugle Corps. If you don't know what Drum and Bugle Corps is, it's basically it's a giant marching band, all brass players and percussion, and we won the world championship, which was pretty cool.
But I'm actually going to report on it.
Yeah, it was cool.
So this summer, Isabel Sonia of Lancaster, Neshoba class of 2020, earned the title of World Champion at the Drum Corps International DCI Open Class World Championship Finals in Marion, Indiana. As a member of the Spartans, a Nashua, New Hampshire-based drum and bugle corps, Ibby performed throughout the country this summer and competed against almost 50 other student groups in pursuit of the title. In her first year with the corps, Ibby played baritone and was named Brass Rookie of the Year for the elite 6-time world champion Spartans. Ibby also performs in Neshoba's concert band and pep band and sang the national anthem at numerous school events. And we have some flowers we'd like to give you to
Nice.
Congratulations and thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, congratulations. And really, now you can go.
Thank you.
Other superintendent's report before I go into a presentation up here. Staff recognition. 3 Neshoba Regional High School teachers were nominated for a 2019-20 Life Changer of the Year award, sponsored by National Life Group. This award recognizes and rewards K-12 school employees who make a positive difference in the lives of students. The 3 Neshoba educators are Lauren Bullard, a life science teacher, Katie Jenkin, a social studies teacher, and Robert Griffith, a psychology teacher. Mrs. Bullard was recognized for her ability to foster community. Ms. Jenkins' classroom prowess was highlighted, as was Mr. Griffith's appreciation for his students. A total of 16 winners will be chosen across the country, and cash prizes of $3,000 to $10,000 will be awarded. These cash prizes involve both personal awards and donations to schools. So we know that it's just nominations, but we're super proud of our teachers, so thank you. So I'm going to go into a bit of an overview of our first day back. This is much longer than I would normally do for superintendent's report, but I think in light of opening school and the sheer number of topics that have come up, I'm going to actually do a little bit of teeing up here, and I know that Rob is going to pick up some pieces after, and probably Lisa as well. So can we put up my presentation here, if you don't mind? Yeah, let's start with the video. If you haven't seen this, it's really worthwhile to take a look at it. And I just want to thank Todd, who worked with Michael and Cindy on pulling this together. We do this every year. We're very conscientious of the songs that are chosen because it all leads to the theme that we're working on for the year. So we put a lot of thought into that very first day. So this plays as our staff is coming in, and so the music is pumping everybody. Like there's a lot of energy in that room on that first day, and that's what I really want to focus on tonight. I'm going to speak a little bit about the first day, and we were talking earlier about the importance of transparency and the work that we do, so I'm going to go through basically everything I did with the staff that day. That morning we invite all staff in, so absolutely everyone. I'm not sure what your districts do, but here we invite absolutely everyone. So our custodians are there, Cafeteria workers are if they're available. If they're not preparing food, they come in. All our secretaries are there. Absolutely, everyone is there, and that's how we start our first day back. If you take a look, here is the agenda that we've got. You can take a look certainly on your computers as well. The association, of course, always has its meeting first before we come in, and then we all move in at 8 o'clock. And I try to make sure that my remarks are around 10 to 10 or 10:15, that we're wrapped up and ready to go and moving into the buildings to do the rest of the work that has to happen. In that time period, you'll see that we do awards. I want to do a shout out to Alita again. I think we had about 80 awards that we gave out this year. We give out longevity awards for 5, 10, 15, 25, 30, 35 years, and that's really, really amazing to see all these people with that have put so much of their lives into the district. So that's very cool. Todd gave an overview of the day. Kathy was there to give a welcome from the school committee. Anne Marie recognizes different people as well, especially our teachers who've just attained their professional status. And then I wrap up with concluding remarks. And so what I'm doing tonight is I'm not going to go into the vision component. I'm really going to focus on more of the housekeeping tonight, because that kind of ties in with what Rob and Lisa are going to talk about shortly as well. So if we can go to the next page, please. Cindy and actually it was Martina this year that gave the broad overview for the district professional development, which all ties into our DIP and the school improvement plans. Everything all ties together. So they give the broad overview of what our staff can expect moving forward. They did review the DIP as well. Martina did a great job of explaining that and going into detail. And then, of course, what everyone can expect with the professional development schedule moving forward. And then I'll start my last little bit. In terms of where our various foci are for the year, safety continues to be that piece. And I kind of broke it out this year. The first piece that you're looking at here is the different infrastructuring and the strengthening of that infrastructure. And then we're going to talk about non-facilities, and we're going to talk about facilities. But the first is a non-facility area. We're going to continue our work with our local safety partners. That's ongoing. I attended the Chiefs and Superintendent's breakfast meeting yesterday for Middlesex County, where the DA comes and speaks to us about safety. Yesterday there was an emphasis on a prevention of suicide and some general alerts about safety in general. So it's a really good opportunity to get together. We all get together in Lowell and review a number of items. So that work is ongoing. Trainings happened again this year. Once the staff got back to their buildings, within that next day and a half, they all did a refresher on Alice. Lisa oversees all of that and gets it all orchestrated so everybody can go online and do basically a refresher. And then for those people who are new to the district, that's set up individually and separately, and she takes care of that as well, so that everybody is basically on the same page within the first week or 2 weeks of school. We've already started our drills, the ongoing drills. A number of our schools have already had the fire drill starting, locked down, and those are all separate from the evacuation drills. And so we decided last year that we would really try to upfront as many of our drills during the good weather so we could run everybody in and out of the buildings, and so that's been ongoing. And the other thing I'd point out, and those of you who are educators already probably know this, our safety partners come into those drills as well. So I mean, teachers and administrators don't do it on their own. All of our other safety, so there's generally ambulances here, fire trucks, and the police units are here as well during that time. The Alice training I just mentioned, that has happened as well, and mosquitoes. Mosquitoes have been a hot topic for us in Triple E, and I know Rob's going to speak to that as well. You'll note that I've sent out a number of memos to our communities in the last little bit. We've met personally with with a number of our Stowe Board of Health representatives and a representative from the Neshoba Board of Health, which is kind of separate. We did that with a large group of us maybe about a week ago. And the Bolton Board of Health, we just connected through the town administrator back and forth, and he acted as a liaison. Lancaster, I'm actually meeting with them tomorrow. So our boards of health have been fabulous and working together, and we've all shared the communication so that we're all basically all on the same page. The mosquitoes has been one that's been a little bit kind of upping the ante a little bit, because as we've been going on, for example, Stowe, I believe it was Stowe, was just designated as high, at a high level. So that's concerning for us. We took a look at it though and said, if we're doing something for one community, of course we want to do it for all three, because we believe in the equity of treating all of our communities equally. Rob will probably speak to this. We've done spraying along the tree lines in around all of our buildings. We've done the first pass of that probably about 13, 14 days ago, and the next pass is ready to go. If it hasn't happened already, it will happen over the course of the next several days. That is totally separate from the memo that I sent out yesterday, which came from the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Services with the pest division of that. They're looking at doing aerial spraying, and we got that, I want to say about 3 o'clock yesterday, and I think they were scheduled to spray at 4:30, I think is when the first spray was supposed to happen. And it was kind of, can you please let everybody know we're doing this? And it was like, oh my gosh, we've got like a very short period of time to be doing this. They were looking at spraying, for obvious reasons, Stowe and Bolton, and so that would encompass our high school. And I got an email asking me last night about what about the high school. The high school is considered in Bolton, so that area would have been inclusive. Lancaster is not right now on that list, and so I'm sure that will be a topic that's going to be discussed tomorrow, according to their chairperson who I spoke with today. Other than that, we've asked that children, the smaller ones, we can't apply repellent, but if the parents think to maybe perhaps apply repellent before they send their children, of course the obvious that we all understand is that repellent isn't going to last into the afternoon, right? So we're aware of that. I don't have a quick answer on that, but I know that we can't physically administer that repellent. At that, now, the high school games, repellent is available for our high school students if they're doing football or whatever that they're doing out there. With that also came, in the last 24 hours, a whole reschedule for all of our athletic games. And so that is huge. That's an enormous undertaking, and that has a lot of implications that come with it. For example, when you compress and everybody's trying to play inside of a much shorter period of time, for example, there are only so many refs to go around. And so the refs are just backlogged right now, trying to get to as many games as they can, and we're trying to work this. So it has been a logistical nightmare for Tanya Rich as she's been working through this. We've been very cognizant to the time frames that have been listed. I think that's on Mass DEP, right? And you'll see that the time frames literally change every week, because of course the sun goes down at a different time, daily right now. So we've been following the Mass DEP guidelines throughout all of this. I think the other thing we would mention is that we've encouraged parents, when long sleeves make sense. We understand that you can't send your children to school in 85-degree weather with long sleeves, but if they're playing outside, long sleeves where possible, both arms and legs, make sense. So I think we've done the best that we can do. I hope I'm not missing anything, Lisa and Rob. If I am, I'm sure that you'll bring it up after. But that gives you a general overview of where we're at with the mosquito issue that we've been confronting this year. One of the questions that we asked the other day, of course, amongst ourselves is, will we be in the same position again next year? Because everything we do right now, of course, is case-setting precedent moving forward. And then Rob had said something, I think it's on the Mass DEP website, that we're probably looking at this for the next 2 to 3 years, is what they're projecting. The memo that I sent out, not yesterday, but the day before, well, actually yesterday's memo has some too, but the memo before that had a couple of really good websites. If you haven't been onto those, I encourage our parents to go onto those websites and take a look at them. Stowe also has a very nice synoptic on its Board of Health website. So if you go into just the general town of Stowe, and then the Board of Health is over to the right, just kind of click on it, and it has a really nice synoptic of some things for parents to keep in mind. So I encourage that you go on there as well. So that's pretty much it for mosquitoes. The next item is, and again, remember, this is all about safety. Police access to cameras. Previously, the police have had access to their communities. So, for example, Lancaster had ability to go into the Lancaster schools. Stowe had the ability to go into Stowe schools, and Bolton, of course, the high school and the Florence Sawyer campus. One of the things that the police came and asked us is, and I understand, and we've got, honestly, I say this without any bias, I believe the best police forces that we could ever want to deal with in these three communities. For example, they've got waivers. So, for example, and this is not a good example to use, but if there was a bad guy, this is really simplistic language, a bad guy on the run from Lancaster and he hit Bolton, the Bolton police don't have to overtake that anymore. The Lancaster police, now, they've got waivers in place so that all police can move in all the time with anything, which is exactly what we would want. So, for example, I mean, previously it's been kind of the underwritten rule that if anything happens at the high school, all three police forces would come in at the same time. What our police are saying to us, and I know that's just who they are, is they will all be there for all buildings, all the time, irregardless of their community that they belong to. So they're saying, they want to be able to look it up on their phones right away. If something's going on in Stowe, they want to be able to see. And we've numbered all of the buildings. I'll talk about that in a minute too. So they can literally go in and see exactly where something's happening. So our technology unit has been working very closely with the dispatch offices. We have two dispatchers, of course, one in Stowe and one the Devons that oversees Lancaster and Bolton. So they've been working very closely this summer to make sure that they have the access that they need. So that's kind of in terms of strengthening kind of the non-facility. If we can move to the next slide.
That's good.
Oh, certainly.
I just have a quick question. I know that you're not in charge of this, but did the aerial spraying actually happen yesterday?
Oh, you're right. We don't have anything to do with that. I wouldn't know.
It was
delayed, and from what I understand, because I went on the website, it's supposed to take place over the course of several days, 3 days or so, but I think yesterday's got delayed, so it could be today, tomorrow.
I think it said that in the memo too, depending on the weather and the winds and such, so, yeah.
And they'll be giving you notice, maybe a little bit more notice, or?
No, I don't think so. If I was a betting woman, I'd say that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was classified as an emergency waiver. And I think it was emergency because if you take a look, you can see that it was very quickly pulled together, like there are some typos in there and such that normally that's not the kind of thing that comes out of DEP or any of the state departments. And so I think they decided that we need to do this now, and here it is. And schools, here it is. So that's how I took it. So I don't suspect or anticipate that we will be receiving anything more from them. I think that was it.
Evening only? Evening application?
It is beginning at around 7:30 through 4:30
In the morning.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all night.
We've also done some additional things too. I mean, we've made sure that we've pulled all of the extra toys, for example, that were outside in, and we've done things like that far too many details for around this table right now, but we took extra measures as well. For strengthening for the facilities, that's a little bit different. We'll just go into the first bullet. Thank you. Lisa and Rob will talk to you shortly about the repeater additions. We are so excited to say that this is the direction that we're moving in. Our chiefs have been asking for this for long before I came here. And Lisa will talk to you about a grant that they worked on together with our police departments. We received it, and now a repeater will be in every building, and they can give you more details when they come to talk about that. But I'm so proud of the work that our staff did with the police, and I'm proud to say that we are going to have these at every one of our buildings from now on. So that's very exciting. Additional service and switches. This was part of a town votes that came forward this year on the town warrants in Stowe and Lancaster. We were in a good place already with Bolton, so Bolton didn't need to up theirs, but the others did. And so this will help to put us in a good position because Rob has shared with you before, but he will probably allude to it again tonight, the fact that we've got a several years plan in place, and this was the first step. I think it's like a 3-year plan. This was the first step that we needed before we could move into the second plan and the third phase of it. And so we've had that discussion with the town administrators. Everybody knows where we're at with it, including we've brought this up with our FinCom, so we've had conversations with them prior to the town meetings. So I think everybody was in a good place for that. So that's done, and I believe all the service switches are now in place within the district over the summer. The window film, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with that, but I would tell you that that was one of the things you'll recall. Those of you who've been sitting on the school committee for a couple of years, you'll remember that a couple of years ago we did a full comprehensive review, a safety review of every school and building in the district. And then we were able to take that, glean from that, and that's where, as I was talking about earlier, the cameras and such, the switches and servers, that was all part of that review. And so we sat down and took a look at it and prioritized it with their support, the help of the company who did it. One of the things that came forward was the notion of applying appropriate window film. It is not bulletproof, but it is shatterproof. Is that how we can term it? And we have placed it on a fair number of windows and doors across the district this summer. Because it's not necessarily bulletproof, but the fact that what it does do is it slows the potential entry, and so that kind of helps our responders. And again, Rob will speak to that too tonight. We did add a couple of additional cameras where we felt we absolutely needed to, and those are now installed as well. Rob may mention that too. And the window and door numbering, you can't, well, I guess you can't imagine how big a project that was in a school district our size, to have every single window and door numbered inside and out. And so there's absolute logic to it. It was very thoughtful in how it was done, and again, with our police safety partners. So basically, if we know that something is happening in room, I don't know, 13A, everybody know, again, the police can go on, see exactly where it is, and know exactly where to go. So we feel very comfortable. That was a huge project that really took us almost a year to complete. So thrilled with that. Water update. There was a story, if you saw it in the Boston Globe, and I'm going to allude to that here shortly. And I know that our own local papers are doing a story on it as well. But let me just give a couple of salient points, and then Rob will speak on it again when he comes to talk. So we moved forward. I'm going to say, Rob, again, you can correct me, probably around May or so. May, June, we voluntarily tested for PFAS. And there's a lot, if you're doing any homework or research in this area, there's a lot of things that fall under that. I think there's like over 2,000 elements that fall into it. Our company is Whitewater, who's the vendor that we work with, that we're on contract with. They test for 5 of the key ones, and the Mass DEP, I believe, tests for 6. So our numbers are a little bit different between the Whitewater numbers and Mass DEP, but we expected that. We all expected that would happen. So again, I know that we had a parent call and ask us about it, and we just looked at each other and said, it wasn't really because a parent called, it's just, it makes sense for us to be proactive, because I said, if one parent is calling, that means other parents are thinking about it. We should be thinking about it. Why don't we be proactive with this? And then at least we have a gauge and we know exactly what's going on. Primarily in Bolton and Stowe, because they're well water. Lancaster's in a different position because you're on town water. And that really falls to the purview of your town administration and your DPW. But I'll touch base with that a little bit further in a minute. So we went after Bolton and Stowe first because they're all well water, and that's where we were looking. This is long before Mass DEP ever came into our world, because they weren't even on our radar at that point in time. So we tested it. Bolton came back with, I think, 0 detect, right? Absolutely 0. So we weren't worried about that. And by the way, Lancaster, I believe you get some of your water from Bolton area. So we felt that you probably were kind of safe. But with that, we have still asked for a voluntary water test anyway, and your town knows that we're doing that. So we knew that Bolton was okay. We thought probably Lancaster was okay. We weren't as sure about Stowe. So Stowe's water came back, and whatever the parts are, I think the acceptable right now is, I want to say 70 parts per trillion. They came back around that 20 to 30 parts. So we knew that we were well under and fully in compliance with that particular number. With that, though, came, we'll keep our eye on this and see if we didn't expect it to necessarily change a whole lot, but we'll keep our eye on it. Then we got a phone call from Mass DEP that said, hey, we're voluntarily asking, does anybody want to have their water tested? And we said, well, we actually have had our water tested, so I think we're in a good place. They said, well, why don't we test it too? So we looked at each other and said, sure. We already knew what the number was coming from Whitewater. They said, well, our number would probably be a little bit different because we test for, I believe, one more. And we said, well, that's fine. But yeah, sure, let's go ahead and do this. So then they did it, they got their results back, and we took a look, and it was, again, very, very close. I think theirs was just a little bit higher than ours was, but not like 10 or 20. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a little bit more. So we knew that Mass DEP was looking at potentially changing that 70 parts per trillion to a different number. So we have no idea sitting here tonight what that number will be. We suspect, because there's grapevine scoop out there, not that anybody has told us this specifically, we are guessing though it's probably going to be around that 18 to 25 parts mark. If that's the case, then Stowe will then be out of compliance. We looked at it and said it makes sense for us to do something right now. Why wait until somebody comes along with a new number? We have no idea, by the way, when that will happen. But why wait? We might as well say, okay, we've got a PFAS issue here right now. Let's be proactive with it. And as Tom Hull says, we're always proactive anyway. This should be just one more thing that we're being proactive in. So that's what we did. So we brought water in, and I said at the time, because it was so close to the opening of school, I didn't know if we could get everything in place, but I said, let's not race through this. We do everything else thoughtfully. Let's be thoughtful with it. The water hasn't changed from last week to this week. It's not going to change anymore. Let's just be thoughtful with this and get water in, whatever that looks like. But I think we managed to get all the water in place in the Stowe schools for the first day of school. We sent a memo out to staff when we sent a memo out to our students, and we encouraged our students to bring their own bottles of water from home. And I know when Ross Mulcairn did their first day back at Center School and asked how many of you brought water, I think it was 99.5% of the students had brought water in from home. Rob is continuing to look at this. We met several times with the town administrator. As I said, we met with your Stowe members, representatives from the Board of Health, and Neshoba representative, and we had our whole team there that has anything to do with this. So Rob was there, Lisa, our principals, Tom Hull was there, Pat was there, Todd was there. We were all there in case they had any questions that I couldn't answer that you might have had a piece of or somebody else might have had a piece of. That was a very good meeting, very respectful of the approach that the Stowe Board of Health took with us, very appreciative of working in partnership with them. We also took one step further, and we asked for a meeting with Kate Hogan, and that's because she's avidly and actively involved and interested in this particular issue. So it made sense for us to sit down with her as a small group of people, of leadership members. We did that and had a very good meeting with her. So I felt that we were in a good position to move forward. I think that our parents have been fabulous. We did have the Boston Globe come to do a story. I think that he maybe was looking for a different story than was present. I'm so appreciative and respectful of our Stowe parents and how they dealt with that particular reporter. I don't think that they could have done one thing better. And when the article came out, it was pretty factual, and there wasn't a lot of spin or story that really wasn't there. One of the things that Kate Hogan mentioned to us, and when we've talked with others, is for people to realize that this is something that's happening in real time. We don't have a lot of answers right now, and I think that that's one of the things I respected about the Stowe parents who corresponded with us. They realize that this is something that's happening in real time, and even the fix to fix this is happening in real time. Like, we're working right now with Mass DEP to find the best fix we can find for those two schools. They will be marginally different, but I think in the last week what we've realized is probably more similar than we had anticipated. At first we thought it was going to be starkly different. It's not looking that way now as we move closer to whatever that fix looks like. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So that's a lot of safety things. So.
Regarding the water in Stowe, the students have been asked to bring in water, and you had mentioned to me at one point about water used in the kitchens.
Yeah.
And what the workaround for that was going
Sure.
to be. So if you could talk about that, and then what the potential budget impact would be.
Well, the potential budget impact is easy because the answer is we don't know.
Okay.
So we honestly don't know right now, and we can't even guess. We know that the engineering right now is going to be about $4,500 for the two schools, but we don't know what thereafter, because it depends on whatever the fix is going to be for this. Rob's also been communicating with Hudson because they have just, I met with their superintendent yesterday morning, and they right now just got back a no detect in their water finally, which is great. That's where we would like to be. I don't know if we can get there, but that's certainly, you're always aiming for excellence.
So are you bringing water in for the
We are.
day-to-day operation of the kitchens?
Absolutely. So thank you for bringing that up too. I appreciate that. So if you were to take a look in our kitchens right now, they have huge, I don't know, is it 5 gallon? 5 gallon bottles that sit in the sink with pumps on them. Anything that's being, I mean, we've taken a number of different activities with regards to this. For example, if we're having pasta or rice or anything that would absorb PFAS, that is being cooked off-site and being trucked down 117 to the Stowe schools. So if it absorbs it. Vegetables don't, so it's okay to, you know, with Mass DEP guidelines, it's okay to use it for vegetables and such, but right now, quite frankly, we're not using it for our vegetables either. We're using the bottled water for that kind of thing too. One of the other things that I hadn't even thought of, and this is why we've got such a great team to work with, is one of the ways of keeping our food warm is through steam. And we've shut that down. So there's no steam running in our ovens anymore. So, and all of our water fountains have all been either clipped off, like they've got a little thing in, and Rob can speak to that certainly, but I'm sharing so much of it, probably Rob won't have anything to say what he does. We've got clips on them. They've had some really neat little things there that just shut them down. Those that we couldn't shut down have been turned off. And if we couldn't do that, they've been wrapped in plastic. And there are water tables set up throughout the schools with cups and the water bottles. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Anything else on safety right now?
Will we hear later from
Rob?
the report on kind of the projections on timelines
Yeah.
and things of that sort? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a quick
Yes,
question.
Joe.
I'm sorry, Brooke, I may have missed this when you were going through the safety informational items. It says police access to cameras. What is that?
So basically, like, our camera systems in our buildings have previously, like last year, for example, Lancaster police could only see Lancaster schools. They couldn't see anybody else's school. And what the police chiefs collectively came and said, listen, if something happens in any Neshoba school, we will all be there. It won't just be Stowe in Stowe. Like, Lancaster police will be in Stowe as well. And so they wanted to be able to access and see where the issues were, so they all knew where they were going.
I have a quick follow-up.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused about that. So I was not aware of what you just said. So the Lancaster police have video feeds to the police station for what's going on inside the school?
If there's an emergency, it's not a full streaming.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
We couldn't afford that.
Okay.
Well, even if they wanted it, we can't afford it. It's far too expensive. No, it's set up so that if there's a crisis, they go in. But for example, I think the passwords for all 3 communities ran out, and they had to re-up because nobody had gone in. So it's only if there's a crisis situation that they would be going in there. Otherwise, no, they don't as a rule.
Other questions?
Great question.
Okay, good.
Okay, thanks, Lena. Sorry, I'm gonna try. There's just a lot, so I'm gonna try to get through it as quickly as I can. Leachfield, Rob's gonna talk about that as well and give you a little bit more detail, but that was a great summer project. I think we're 99.9% complete right now, pretty close to that. He'll talk to you about the oil tank that's on order and some timelines on that. The MSBA application, we're waiting word on that. We haven't heard anything, so knock wood, we're waiting for December to come quickly. One of the things that we're asking of the high school staff is that they spend some time this year looking at reflections on a new building or a dramatically changed building. I won't go into any detail on that right now, but you will hear more about that as we go through the school year. From there, I moved in on the first day into where we're heading as a district with the district improvement plan, what that looks like. We had district improvement plans available the very first day for them, and then if they didn't pick one up there on site, we delivered them so that everybody had access to the district improvement plan. Last year, we had really focused on innovation, and we looked at George Kuros's work, the innovator's mindset. And as I had said to our staff, you know, the first 2 years we really worked at stabilizing the district, making sure whether it was fiscal, whether it was HR, whether it was sped, we really looked at stabilizing the district for the first 2 years. The third year is when we said, okay, we can start to stretch our thinking a little bit. What's that going to look like? And George Kuros, tied in beautifully with the technology component that we were really focusing on, and then just the out-of-box thinking and how we could positively look at things through a very different lens, and he was fabulous. As we looked this year, we were really looking to tie in George Kuros's work, and so continue that innovation, but tie it in with SEL, with the social emotional learning, and what did that come together and look like. And so Tony Wagner, we thought would be a perfect tie-in as we move next year into more of a full SEL. So that's why the district improvement plan, of course, is a 2-year plan, because we see this as kind of that springboard year to get us to year number 2. So one of the things that Tony Wagner really stresses, that I also stress that day, is the notion of going play, passion, and purpose. And I know, Elaine, you brought that up the other day with me when we were talking. Tony Wagner talks about play being the childhood piece, passion coming at the adolescence, and the purpose coming at the adult. But I challenged our staff to think, and maybe it's just because I often think of this as play, passion, and purpose as adults. You know, in terms of, it's okay for us to take something that we love to do, in my case it's education, and have that play piece, but then as an adult, I move back and forth, I vacillate back between the play, the passion I feel for the work that I do, and the fact that there has to be purpose. And that purpose is always, for me, always been, even as a teacher, doing the very best for the children that I served. Whether it was in a classroom, as a teacher, a building, as a principal, or a district, as a school leader. So I want to make sure that we keep that notion of play, passion, and purpose at the forefront of our efforts in all the work that we do within the district, not just as leaders, but as teachers and leaders. So that was kind of the thrust of that. And I think, is that it? That's it for slides, right? So that gives us a broad overview of the day. I know, Kathy, you were there because you were there to give some good, wonderful, welcoming words to us, and I know, Todd, you were there. So as leaders, you may want to kind of chime in and offer a thought or two on the first day, if I've missed anything, certainly.
I just wanted to talk about the vibe of the room. It was always, took me back to first day of school as a teacher and as an administrator, and the sense that you know, people are a little nervous no matter how long you've been working. It's also exciting to see everybody looks about 10 years younger and you know, have recharged their batteries. But also I thought the opening presentation was very well done. Certainly the stuff that you presented, the video, and then Todd and Teaching and Learning speaking to the different initiatives this year. And I think it moved, it didn't get stalled anywhere because teachers, secretaries, everybody just want to get back into their buildings and get started. And so I thought it was a good introduction to the school year. And thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Todd, for the work you guys did.
Thanks.
And thank you, Alita, because it wouldn't have happened without you making sure everything was organized. Thanks.
Todd, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great opening day. The vibe was wonderful. I think teachers were really excited. There was a lot of positive energy in the room. And I think we set up our building leaders and our principals at our administrative retreat with a lot of resources and tools to really focus on that social emotional element. Part of the reason why we're bringing Tony in is because it really is a nice dovetail from George Couros' work, really around innovation. But, you know, Tony talks about the new skills that have really become more valuable and most valuable are those social emotional skills, such as cooperation and collaboration and motivation. And we really want to focus on and giving our students those kinds of skills so that they can be really successful moving out of academia. So we're really excited about what the year's going to bring for us, and really excited about Tony coming too. And I've talked with him several times, so
We're excited about it. Yeah, I think it was a great start to the school year. So
and feedback was wonderful.
yeah, feedback was excellent.
The date for Tony Wagner is
March 10th.
Oh,
March
March 10th.
10th.
Sorry.
Last year, Elaine and a few other folks from the school committee were there at the George Couros presentation. It was I thought it was outstanding.
I cried.
Yeah, and I think we all cried after the bourbon commercial, which was like a rope-a-dope. There's this very emotional thing, and a guy learning English so he can read the book his son wrote, and there's not a dry eye in the place, and then at the end they put their glasses, and it's a bourbon commercial. But the tee-up was great. So March 10th.
March 6th. I'm sorry.
I thought it was March
right.
6th.
Thanks, because I was just going to ask everybody to pencil
Put it
us
on their
in.
calendars. You know,
So
March 6th,
if
Friday,
there's
March
any way
6th.
you can go, and it's always the first thing. That would be awesome. So just keep it
It's a
in mind.
great day.
Okay.
Really
Any
great
other
day.
questions or comments for Brooke or Tom?
No?
Okay.
Great. Thank
Can
you.
we move on to the business office update? And here comes Pat Maroney. How are you?
Good, how are
Good
you?
to see you. Great.
Hello, everyone. So, I think I'm going to do the request from the athletic director first.
Somebody has it. Well, you can.
I have it.
Yeah, I mean, they have the motion. Somebody does.
Oh, okay.
Or Kathy designated.
So, our athletic director, Tanya Rich, has requested that we donate a large lot of old football jerseys and helmets to the Neshoba Athletics Booster Club. Normally, what we do with surplus equipment is we put it up on a site called Municibid, and people are given the opportunity to bid on this, but within our community, we thought that this might be a better idea for us.
Pat, can you explain what the Booster Club does with
The Booster Club raises money for our athletics.
So they will sell these?
And I'm getting
Okay, I'm sorry.
going on. The Booster Club's intention is to sell the jerseys to players, fans, as a Booster Club event at games. So that's why it's important that I bring this to you right now so that we can put them for sale at the football game. The funds raised will then be used to support our athletes, as the Neshoba Athletics Booster Club has done for so many years. The school committee policy states that we can donate surplus items to a 501c organization with a 2/3 school committee approval. And the Neshoba Booster Club is a 501c3 organization. So I'm requesting a motion tonight, and
Okay, can I have a motion, please? Steve?
I move that we authorize the donation of excess and old equipment to the Neshoba High School Booster Club for their purposes to support the athletes.
Thank you. A second, please?
I'll second them.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Any questions or further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Next up, some slides. So what I have in front of you is just a couple of slides in regards to our Chapter 78 for fiscal year 20. So for Neshoba, our fiscal year Chapter 70 aid, our fiscal year 20 Chapter 70 aid budgeted amount is $7,218,771. Right now, the state is projected to fund $7,273,744,000, which is an increase of about $54,973. So anyway, this is good news. This is a little bit more than we usually get as an increase. You know, usually it's about $20,000 and that's about it, but we got a little bit more this year. So I just want to also say that this is projected. This could change because we know that the way that our legislature works, they change things around all the time, they move money around, and so right now we're hoping that this will hold true, you know, and that they will honor their commitment to the schools and giving us this number. They hold fast with that. I've also provided you with a slide. It's from the Department of Education, and it will give you kind of a comparison of fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20 and the changes. I mean, you can access more detail on this information on the DESE website. So if anybody has any questions about anything here.
I think we just want to be cautious here. I know that right now it looks like we've got 50,000 more, but Pat and I were saying we've both experienced years where that hasn't come through. And so we're letting you know just as a point of information, that's all this is. It's not that you plan for another teacher, well, it wouldn't be for another teacher or another whatever, because you just can't count on that.
Mike?
Assuming that money does come through, and I absolutely understand where you're coming from, I don't want to jump to conclusions. Where would that money live before it might be used? For what purposes might it?
Ultimately, it ends up in E&D.
If it was left over, you know, like Pat will be bringing recommendations next meeting for funds to go into E&D. That's where that would ultimately land if it wasn't used. But again, it's way too early in the year to even think about this, because we really don't even, like, I mean, we might have one payroll under our belt right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, now is not really a good time yet for us to even think about potentially. But to your point, Mike, if it's left over, then Pat would bring recommendations to the school committee like she will next meeting.
Right, and I'm going to bring everything for fiscal year 19 that I have at this point. It's not audited, but it's pretty much where we stand at the end of fiscal year 19. So.
And when will the Chapter 70 funds
come into the district?
Yeah.
They come in monthly.
Okay.
They break it up, and if there was an adjustment, they would adjust it, you know, about mid-year. You know, if they
Mid-academic year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, around January or so, the end of January. So.
Elin, did you have a question?
Yes, and you may feel more comfortable speaking about this in the next meeting after what you just said, but in a similar process question, I know that there's going to be an FY19 supplemental budget. It's not completed. The governor announced his version, still has to go through the legislature, but like in previous years when there's a supplemental budget that comes out, is that money ever planned to be used for something, or does it go straight into E&D? Is it similar to this where it's sort of a bonus? Or
typically, like if it was to be part of fiscal year 19, I think that the Department of Revenue has said that they were going to allow us to almost like encumber it into the previous fiscal year. But I'm not even sure whether or not that's going to happen, so I don't even want to go down that road at this point. It's very confusing. It's part of the E&D certification, and whether or not they let us include it in our E&D
Yeah, I don't know
for
if they
fiscal
would or
year
not.
19.
I think there's a lot, I
That's
think there are
what
a
it
lot of
comes down
questions
to.
that would be asked, so we've not been in that position yet, so we'll see.
But ultimately, we think of things like that as E&D funds and not as, well, we're hoping something comes through and this is where we would place it. Like, you don't even have those discussions, right?
Oh, no, that kind of discussion we have all the time.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for example, you look forward, and I had mentioned this before too, and I mean, free full day K is on our mind all the time, you know, because I think once you move beyond the philosophical, is this something to do or not, then that money piece comes in behind it, right? And you have to say, okay, so how are we going to pay for that gap year? Well, right now we know that we've basically got probably about half of what we need set aside for that. Well, we still have a little bit here that we need to go. We know that every year that we don't do this, we're losing out on state funding. So for us, it makes sense that you say, okay, at some point in time, we probably should talk about this sooner than later, right? So we have those kinds of, I mean, that's an example of a discussion that's happening all the time in our offices we're watching. That's not the only discussion, but that's, I think, is that what you're asking, is it like those types of discussions?
Yeah, you're at that
Yeah.
level.
We're always talking about that.
So that's about it. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Steve?
It's not a question, but I think we have to realize, because there's always a lot of publicity about them redoing the foundation algorithm. And if they redo the foundation algorithm, the odds are we're going to lose money rather than gain money, because they're going to cycle that money to poorer school districts, and we would not. So looking ahead and trying to figure out, how much money we're going to get is not a good idea.
I think we have to live in the moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so too.
The fiscal moment, yeah, but you're right, we don't know, there's too much we don't know right
With
now.
as soft of an impact
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what we're planning for.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Pat, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to hear from Lisa Gubicki.
Thank you for having me. And welcome to the new members. I see new faces around. I wasn't here for their first meeting back, but thank you for having me. I'm talking about a few grants that we received this year. First one is Comprehensive School Health Service Grant that we applied for. The goal is to implement a comprehensive interdisciplinary approach to student health in order to address school-based health prevention and promotion programs like substance abuse, reproductive health, or oral health. Those are just some suggestions. Also support for students with chronic health conditions, diabetes, and a big focus on the shift of mental health, as well as to address health disparities and racial inequalities, homelessness, poverty, and access to care, in order to improve student attendance and academic achievement. More importantly, the grant is also used to implement a re-entry program, or a bridge program, which they call a specific one called BRIGHT, for students returning to academics after an extended absence for reasons such as post-hospitalization, rehabilitation, or recovery from a concussion, in order to successfully return to learning. We started that process even prior to the grant being received last year, and had a subcommittee that got together and looked at what our reentry looks like, and we're trialing that paperwork now in protocol to see if that fits into what our goals were. The program will work to establish targeted integrated supports for students whose learning has been significantly impeded by serious mental health and or other medical challenges. We were awarded for the first 4 years of $75,000 a year with that money. We were able to hire somebody for a 0.6 position, and also have funds to be utilized in order to support the program throughout the year. At the end of that 4 years, they will look at if we're meeting the goals and guidelines. It's very comprehensive of what they want the goals to be. And if we are, there's potential to continue for another 4 years after.
And this also ties back in with the SEL and our focus on this. But I'm thrilled. That's a lot of money to get. I know that it's targeted money, that it has to be spent on very specifics, but very specific to what we needed. So it was just a hand in glove moment, you know. So I'm thrilled, and we've hired someone, and she's started already.
As of day 6, we had a pretty extensive caseload already. So we're in the infancy stages of how this is going to look over time. And I just, asked, we're starting mostly at the high school, but we have cases in other schools as well to start off with. But we want to be thoughtful of the process and not just jump in and not have a plan of what it looks like. Since it's a 4-year plan, we really want to make sure how we can support students currently right now, and we're off and running. So it's we've actually some of the funds as well is a professional development day. We're going to have all social workers, guidance counselors, nurses, and adjustment counselors attend a 2-day training. It's called Prepare Training, and that'll start on our first 2 professional development days. So we have over 40 of us that will be there. And that looks at the trauma-informed brain, what it looks like, how we prepare for crises, and how to de-escalate.
The only other add-on I'd say too is certainly, and every year, I'm sure, Lisa, you can probably speak to the same thing, and or other educators around the table. I remember way back when we really didn't have students out for hospitalization like we do now. And every year that number grows more and more significantly. And when you say we were off and running, I know that you were, because we had students hospitalized in the summer that we're dealing with. So it happens. I think that people don't realize just how much it happens, but it does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, and it allows us to do a lot of home visits as well. We've already done quite a few, and it's only how many days in school that we've done home visits, and we have plenty of those scheduled as well to help support families. So, any questions on that grant?
Question?
Yes.
You were saying,
Excuse me. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said that the Bright, are you calling it the Bright program?
That's one program that they want us to look at. It's a bridge program. It's what that looks like in some high schools that have implemented it already. It's almost like that in between. So when they're coming back from a post-hospitalization, they go to a safe room. We have something very similar already, so we're already ahead of the game with our academic learning center. It kind of mimics that same thing, that they have an area, a safe place before they can streamline back into the classroom. So we were already there. It's a matter of supporting that and giving it more support that may be needed.
And so the 0.6 position you were talking about is being added to what is already there?
No, not to that program. The 0.6 position is it's a nurse that will do home visits and look at reentry, connecting outside communities with us now. What currently happens if somebody's been hospitalized, a lot of times we don't receive information until right before they're coming back to school. And this is going to start that process earlier to be able to go to these facilities and actually be part of their discharge plan and come back in. And then also work on programs for social and emotional learning, anxiety, things to get kids to come to school that are having difficulty getting through the front doors because of their mental health.
Other questions? Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks. So another grant, as we continue with the work that Brooke mentioned earlier with safety 2019-2020, Rob and I, help me if I miss anything, spent a lot of time along with Pam Sadowska. She was really instrumental in helping with resources. She reached out to law enforcement, Everett down in Lancaster, and others. Peter from Beltronics helped us write this grant in order to receive it. The application was submitted and we awarded $62,230. We're in connection with all 3 police and fire chiefs that really wanted this, and it's for the repeaters and communication linking systems for all 3 3 towns for the districts. It's a public safety linking community inclusive of repeaters, linking system, radios, and licensing. And what that means is that they would be able to communicate, our principals or administrators in the building at the time would be able to communicate via radio to any Lancaster, Stowe, or Bolton, depending on what the situation or emergency that's happening. Something that, as Brooke had mentioned, the police and fire were looking for quite a few years. And it was Chief Nelson that brought it to me one day and said, "Do you want to meet on Monday morning and discuss this grant?" And he handed it to me and I said, "I think it's great." He says, "Okay, let me know how it goes." So thank you, Chief Nelson, but he's the one that brought it to us, and we had a week and a half to write it, and I'm very proud of the team that worked on it. I couldn't have done it without Rob and Pam. It was really a collective team, and Peter from Beltronics, because for the longest time, I said, I don't even know what a repeater is, but we'll keep writing it. But it worked out well.
I think one of the concerns the police had was particularly the high school.
Yeah.
And that, just the way the high school is built, and this will take all of that away now. There won't be any more concerns with the high school on communication.
Really exciting.
And this has been an issue of long standing. I remember back in 2016 that it was an issue because of the poor cell phone service, but the cost was prohibitive. So congratulations on getting the grant, and this is just another added layer of safety and security for the staff and students. Thank you.
Yeah. Just two more quick things. Rob and I will be working on another grant coming up that will be for next year, and we're going to bring the objectives or goals of that grant or the stipulations of it to the Emergency Response Task Force. We do have law enforcement and safety committee members from each school that attend that meeting and really look at from each building and what would be the next priority for us as a school district, and obviously we would bring that to Brook and Top before we move forward to make sure that that's where we want to be, as well as fire and police. We always partner with them when we're looking at what we're going to do district-wide as far as safety initiatives, but we'll be bringing that to the first meeting in October to see what our next move would be for that. We have some ideas. We also have coming down the line, I have a meeting on October 9th with the Board of Trustees from the Alice Eaton Trust Fund. That is for Stowe. They've reached out to me. It's been since January. We've been working back and forth for months now on certain things that we could use funds for. Some of them are a library resource geared towards social and emotional for students and parents, a library, classroom audio technology, new hearing and vision equipment, since they were last purchased in 2000. Other health service equipments, diabetes camps, and family education support. We're looking at doing some after-school 6-session classes for parents and other family and caregivers of children and adolescents who have either been diagnosed with a mental health condition or experiencing symptoms that may not have been diagnosed yet. So we're looking right around $50,000 for that, and we'll be meeting in October to find out if we qualify. We've been going back and forth, and they're really interested, and this is the next move is for us to meet with the trustees.
Terrific.
Awesome. That's great.
Thank you.
And then I think the thing we have left is the physician contract.
Okay. So do you want to speak to it, or?
Yeah, because I'm sure that because we've got new members, they wouldn't even
Yes.
Oh, the
know about
physician
this.
contract. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So every year we sign a contract with we have a physician consult, Dr. Coleman out of Pediatric West. He consults as often as I want. It's a contract for the year. He signs all of our standing orders. He signs our orders for EpiPen, so we can obtain those for Narcan in our schools. And we consult with him anytime an administrator, even Brooke herself says, can you pass this past the physician? We can ask questions, and he consults with us to make sure that we're doing best practices, and we're responding to parents and students in an appropriate manner. Also, standing orders, consults, and I think that's basically, it's a majority of what we do.
It's a very valuable piece of the work that we do.
He signs all the athletic, at the beginning of the year, he has to sign all the wrestling forms for Tanya, so I bring that to him. So he does a lot for us throughout the year, and no matter what I ask him for, he's more than willing. And he gets back to us in a very timely fashion, very timely.
Very responsible.
He looks over protocols as well. So protocols, we did 3 new ones last year: asthma, diabetes, and medication administration. We have him review them. He makes suggestions on them, and then we edit it based on he's the last one. We have everybody else look at it, and then he's the last set of eyes for our program.
And how long has Dr. Coleman been the district's physician?
I don't before Brook and High.
Okay, so he's one of long-standing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any questions for Lisa about the physician's contract?
Do you have the original? This might be the original. You have it? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay,
It
so
was,
the-
it was in the material.
Yeah, it was in the
Oh,
materials.
they all have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
They've all
So I need a motion
I
to
move.
authorize the superintendent.
Alina just gave it all to me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I move to authorize the superintendent to sign the 2019-2020
positions contract between the district and Dr. Russell Coleman. Dr. Coleman will receive a $2,000 stipend under the terms of the contract. I think we're getting them for a bargain basement price.
Thank you, but don't put that into the, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, any more questions or discussion, comments?
Lisa, I want to thank you so much. The work that you have done has just been amazing in the last couple of years. And these grants, these are not small grants. These are enormous grants.
Thank you.
And just so appreciative of all you do for our district. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, I would echo the superintendent's words, and I hope that, these are the types of things that we'd like to showcase for the communities, that there are substantial grants that we get, and these are all wonderful things on behalf of the students. So thank you, and Rob, for your work.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Rob, this should be quick.
It should be. Thank you, Brooke.
Rob, take all the time you need. No rush.
It's good to see everybody. Hope everybody had a good summer. It was a busy summer for us in the facilities department. I'll start off with the leach field. The project started on July 1st. Everything started off pretty smoothly until they started subsurface digging. In one of the corners of the actual leach field itself, they found a large debris field. I think when they possibly were clearing some soccer fields or some land, they dumped all the stumps and everything in that area. So working with DEP, on-site engineering, and construction dynamics, we were able to adjust the orientation of the leach field in a very short period of time. So there was really no disruption as far as the timeline of the construction went. As of right now, we're about 95% complete. All the disturbed areas have been hydroseeded. The new pump and control panel will be installed next Wednesday, September 18th. DEP will give us final approval and bring the system online hopefully later in the day on the 18th if everything goes smoothly, or it'll be on the 19th. And then the project will be complete at that point. And hopefully get some favorable weather and get some grass growing. So, it was a good project, a couple little hiccups here and there, but it was pretty smooth for the most part. A little update on the oil tank. The project will hopefully start Monday or Tuesday this coming week. SIN Environmental was out today to do the preliminary layout of where the pad and the oil tank is going to sit behind the high school. The lead time should have the tank arriving around the first week of October. Everything should be in place to have the tank dropped on the pad, and then the connections and the wiring and for the piping will be made after that. There's a contingency plan in place for a temporary tank in the event that something gets delayed. So that way we'll have smaller temporary tanks in place to have oil in there, so we can get the heating season underway if we get into that time period. Hopefully it goes as smooth as the leach field and everything goes right along. Touch base on the safety upgrades. Over the summer, like Superintendent Clenchey said, the remaining servers and switches that hadn't been upgraded were installed. Everything is in operation, and it's for preparation of the multi-year security camera upgrade that we're going to put forward to the towns for the capital projects. We did do some camera upgrades that we felt were necessary in the district, which are online now, and the quality of cameras that they have now is amazing compared to what we have. I was talking to Chief Nelson yesterday because we had a meeting with him, and we were looking at a couple of the new cameras and just how clear and everything, and we were picking stuff up in the grass, basically, where the other cameras are very, they're not foggy, but just they're pixelated. So it would be good to start making those upgrades. We have made security enhancements to some of the doors and windows in all the buildings across the district, like Superintendent Clenchey said. We've added a window film with a structural caulking that holds that film in place. So if somebody was to try to penetrate the window or door, it holds the glass in place, and it allows for first responders more time to get here, so that way the intruder can't access the building. Working with Omnium Protection Group, we strategically laid out those windows and doors, also taking into account the ALICE program in the evacuation. One of the aspects of that is evacuation. So taking all that into play and laying out the plan for all the windows and doors. To kind of recap on Lisa's and Superintendent Clenchey's remarks on the repeater system, We're working with Peter Gobi at Beltronics. We're going to have a repeater and an antenna on every single building in the district, so we'll have intercommunication, radio communication from one end of the district to the other, so all administration can talk to each other via radio with direct link to police and fire. So if there's ever a mutual aid response, there'll be a direct communication for a central command unit, whoever's taking control of that. So it'll be a seamless communication across the district. There won't be any lapse in communication for a better response time. That hopefully it's a robust system. Like I said, the repeaters and antennas are going in right now. There's a fair amount of programming that has to go along with that. So as things come online, it's hopefully, from what Peter says, we're anticipated late fall we should be up and running with that. That's it for security updates. PFAS obviously is a hot topic right now that we have going on. Not to go too much back into detail from what Superintendent Clenchey said, but I did have a conversation with Northeast Geoscience, who we're working with. That's the engineering firm we're working with. As of today, he is about 99% done, wrapped up with the engineering, and he hopes to get that over to DEP by the end of the week for their approval. Part of the filtration system we're going to be doing is it's a granulated charcoal, activated charcoal in a vessel that's similar size to a hot water heater. It's about 2 feet around, 60, 80 inches high, and we're going to size the vessels based off the flow of water that we use in the school each day. The first vessel will do the bulk of the work. It'll take the majority of the chemical out. The second one will finish it off to make sure, and we're trying to get down to that no detect. There's no guarantee that we're going to get there, but that's what we're striving for. If once we start testing after this has been installed, if we're at no detect, great. If we're not at no detect, it's going to be designed to add additional vessels so that we can get down to that no detect. Not knowing what DEP is going to come down with for a threshold, we don't even want to fool around with trying to get to a certain number. We just want to go right to no detect, so that way it's easy for everybody.
Over and above the, Madam Chairman.
Steve, do you have a question?
Yes. Over and above the initial expense for the system, will the charcoal have to be periodically replaced, and that will be an ongoing?
It will, and I had a conversation with Joel over at Northeast Geoscience today, and that was one of the questions that I asked him. What's the replenish intervals? And he said on similar systems that he's done, it's in the size system that we're putting in, you're looking at 2 years, around 2 years. It's pretty dirty to go out and change all that, so we'll be contracting that out. They have the right tools to get the job done. They'll come in 3-4 hours. If we try to do that in-house, we'd have to buy equipment. It'd be a day's project. So, but I was happy to hear that, it should be around 2 years before we have to change that charcoal, which would be nice. Up at the Hale School, we're going to have to do some retrofitting.
Sure, Mike, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious, do we have we historically tested for this compound?
No, this is really brand new, and at Mass DEP would tell you it wasn't even on our radar until after 2016. So this is like brand new. And that's why I was saying earlier about the real time, the whole notion that we're just going through this, and because I think we are the first school district, which is why I think the Boston Globe picked it up to do what we're doing. So I think that's one of the reasons why. We didn't realize that at the time. We just thought we were doing what was right for kids.
So, does this represent kind of a higher resolution of a suite of analytes that we'll be testing for from this point forward, or was this a one-off and we just happened to catch it? Does that mean that from this point forward we're going to be testing on an annual basis just to make sure it doesn't kind of come back?
Well, you're going to want to make sure that I'm sure that we'll be testing regularly because you're going to want to make sure that.
DEP's going to mandate it. DEP's going to come up with mandates. I'm guessing it's going to be quarterly at first, and then as we get those test results back, if we continue on with the no detect, then I'm pretty sure we'll be able to back off on that to biannually or annually. So.
We test out the water regularly, Mike, regularly across the district.
Yeah.
I think Hale, isn't it? Right, almost. Is it daily? Every other day?
They monitor it daily, but with the new chemical injection system and the alarm system, they don't have to come every day with that.
Yeah.
So
So it's really regularly monitored.
Leah, did you have a question?
I wonder if we or the DEP are searching for the costs.
The cost?
No.
Oh, cost.
Oh, no, I think that's pretty well known out there. Yeah, I think if you go and look, in fact, again, if you go into the Mass DEP website, there's a nice section right in there that explains it. So, and PFAS, now correct me if I'm wrong, or you or Lisa, I mean, there were things like, for example, fire suppression, Teflon, different companies, different, whatever, different manufacturing companies and stuff. That's where this really comes from, and it seeps into the soil, and and it depends on like how close or how far you are away from one of those. So I mean, there's a whole series of ways it's sourced this PFAS to begin with.
But with the Hudson example, they have found culprits.
That's right.
So are we looking for specific situations, or?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why we were even on Mass DEP's radar, that Stowe was on Mass DEP's radar, is because of Hudson, and because some of the activity and some of the activity that's happened in the past, like not present activity, but old historical activity, and that's where they think it may have started. So yes, I think that they have a good idea. Would they say right now for sure that was it? No, again, because it's all in real time. So they had an inkling towards it, but I don't think anyone's prepared to say it's because X happened, that's why.
But we're convinced that it's not an ongoing problem, that it's, or not convinced, but what I'm wondering, I guess, is something happening currently that's making it continue to be bad or even worse? Is the cause over and done with?
They're calling it a forever chemical, so because it's, I guess call it hydrophobic, and that might be the wrong word to use. Once it gets in the aquifer, nothing's going to break that down microbially or anything like that. Nothing. It's there. So when it gets in the aquifer, it just moves freely through the aquifers. So it's just traveling as it goes. You did mention that they found the pollutant source over in Hudson. I think they are looking into that. Where that is, we don't know. But they don't know right now.
They're not prepared. Like we've asked that very question, and they're not prepared to give us an answer other than exactly what I'm giving, saying it could be a series of things.
And would it be the town, the Board of Selectmen, who pursue this? This isn't something that the schools need to be managing, is it?
No, no. I mean, we have to take care of our own situation, whatever that looks like. But I mean, the larger issue is not the school district's issue.
Okay.
Other questions? Rob?
Up at Hale, we're going to have to make some modifications to the building where the well, the storage tank, and the chemical feed is housed. There's a garage on back, and the garage is split down the middle. The water supply system is on one side, and then it's just a normal garage on the other side that they use for storage. Because of the size of the vessels, we're going to have to kind of take over that other side to retrofit that to accept the vessels. Down at Center School, there's going to be a little bit more engineering involved with that. We have a water softening system down there, and also the chemical feed system. And for the activated charcoal to work properly, all those systems have to be in the right order, so that way it doesn't eat up that activated charcoal. So we're basically going to have to retrofit the entire water system down at Center School before it goes into the storage tank. So there's going to be a lot of piping, redoing the piping down in the boiler room there to make this work properly. I don't have numbers yet. Northeast Geoscience has reached out to 3 different vendors to work on pricing. So hopefully, within the next week or week and a half, we should have pricing, for the installation of the vessels and the replumbing and everything.
And the time frame, I know that's going to come up as well, and you alluded to that a little bit earlier.
Because we're going to have to take the systems offline, it's going to have to be done, I'd like to say, over a long weekend. We're targeting right now probably Thanksgiving break, because there's so many variables there. I don't think we could, even if I think we were in the right place, I don't think Columbus Day weekend would be enough time to get all this work done. It's going to take some time with all that plumbing. And I think that's where the large part of the cost will probably come from with overtime, working on holiday weekends and stuff like that. That's kind of what the mindset is right now. Thanksgiving, maybe they'll have to wait, to the Christmas break, just to try to, for the time. Like I said, we're going to take the water completely offline in the buildings so we won't have, water to the toilets and things like that. So hopefully in the next week and a half, we'll have a lot more answers. I think we're in a pretty good place right now from where we were 3 weeks ago.
Definitely.
So things moving along pretty good.
I think we want to give a shout out to Mass DEP too, who's simply been amazing to work with. They really have been so informative, so helpful, so supportive, so responsive. So I think that they have been outstanding to work with.
Anytime that I've reached out to them, Brooke and all of us, we've reached out to them, and if they haven't answered the phone, we've gotten a phone call back almost immediately. So they've been great with working with us. Touch base on mosquitoes real quick. Obviously, they're going to be doing some aerial spraying. We're taking some preventative measures on our end. Just before school started, 2 days before school started, we had a contractor go out to spray all the tree lines. We're using a natural-based product. It's cedar oil and peppermint oil. We're going to be doing a second application on Saturday morning if it's not raining. We're going to try to do it sooner, but just with the logistics of parent drop-off and students being out there, it takes about 6 hours to spray the whole district. So logistically, it would have been a nightmare to try to do that. So Saturday morning, if the weather is cooperative, if not, they've agreed to come in on Sunday and treat it on Sunday, which is great. Gatsby Grounds, who we contract for our IPM program, they've been very great to work with. Touch base on the summer cleaning. Custodial staff has worked tremendously hard over the summer for the detail cleaning of all the buildings across the district. If anybody was to walk into any of these buildings, shortly after school ends, leading up to 4th of July, you'd walk through and be like, how are they going to get this done? I mean, it's the level of anxiety I have walking through the building, and I know what's going on. It's amazing what happens, in a short week period of time. The guys work very, very hard. This summer was much better than last summer weather-wise. We didn't have the heat and humidity that we had last summer. So for curing waxes and stuff like that, it definitely helped out. And just for overall morale with the team, not being hot and last summer was challenging last summer. So this summer was almost a breath of fresh air. As the heavy lifting starts to diminish, the custodial teams start to shift their gears and do a little project work, repairing walls, painting. The principals have task lists that they'd like to see get done over the summertime, so they work on projects for the principals and any of the staff in the building. And my hat goes off to the whole facilities team. Their hard work over the summer and during the school year. It's amazing what these individuals get done, to give the kids a clean and healthy learning environment. So again, my hats go off to those guys and girls.
I think I know I said in the first day back too that I think you could have gone if there was such a magazine as School Digest. I mean, I know there isn't, but if there was, like Architectural Digest, and you see these beautiful like Brad Pitt oriented homes that he loves to build or whatever. If there was such a thing as School Digest, you could have taken a picture of any one of our schools that first day back. Like there wasn't a weed to be found. The schools looked amazing, just amazing. And I always think that first day back, and I know Kathy, you were there when we acknowledge the custodians in the morning, that's like the biggest cheer in the house.
Oh, yeah, the applause is unbelievable.
The applause is unbelievable because everybody knows how hard everybody works to get those buildings ready. So hats off to Rob, to you, because it's been quite a summer. I mean, you are the pivotal point to all of this, whether it's mosquitoes and it's been a lot, and I know it's been a lot of long days. It's been a lot of long weekends that you've been working here on Saturday and Sunday. You've been coming in to stay on top of everything. Just so appreciative. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions, comments?
I guess
Yes,
I have
Leah.
one pesky question. The leaching field is to come online on the 18th.
18th or 19th.
Is that a problem with the DEP? Didn't they want it on September?
They wanted it on September 1st, but we've been in contact with them right along, so they know what we were up against and some of the issues they had. So we're in good standing with them. They're fine with what's going on.
The first phone call we made as soon as we dug up the little dumpster area was the DEP saying,
They were there pretty quick.
You won't believe what we just came across. Honestly, that was a sight to see, to stand there and see all of that. And I said to Rob at first, and I was naive and I didn't know what I was saying at that point in time, I admit that. I said, well, this will give us an opportunity to just kind of clean it up. And he said, no, Brooke, you need to come and see it. This is not something we can clean up. And you were right. We had to just push the dirt right back over and keep it covered up. So, yeah, it was quite a mess. So DEP has, again, been fabulous to work because we're doing a lot of work with DEP right now. We've got excellent relationships with them. So, yeah.
Okay. Rob, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks for all you do to keep things running. Appreciate it. And now, Anne Marie Stoika.
There's so much to catch you all up on over the summer,
I
after the summer months.
know.
Hi,
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
It's nice
Thank
to
for
see
asking.
you.
Thank you, it's good to see all of you too. The summer hiring season presents the Human Resources Office with its greatest opportunity to contribute to student achievement. We do that by supporting the principals and the other administrators in their quest to hire well, which is, in the opinion of many, one of the most important things that an administrator does. The actual hiring decisions, of course, are made by the principals because they're the experts in recognizing what good teaching looks like. We back them up, though, and play a supporting role by seeing that they have a strong pool of candidates from which to select. We verify the credentials of the applicants, check their transcripts, check their licensure, check their work history. For safety reasons, we check their queries and their fingerprints to make sure that all that's in good order. And once a hiring decision is made, we contact the applicant, now the selected candidate, and make a fair and appropriate offer in a timely manner before someone else snatches them up. And we onboard them and we welcome them. So thank you for this opportunity to let you know how this year's hiring season went. We think it went very well. We're very pleased with our newly hired colleagues. Part of the reason we have such a strong incoming group is the reputation of Neshoba as a high-performing district and as a desirable employer. People want to work here, and we get a large number of applications from a great qualified pool of applicants from which we can select the best of the best. As an example, one of our positions drew 223 applications, which means that our new colleague beat out 222 other people to get that job. Many of our openings had more than 100 applications, and most had more than 50 people vying for the job. So applying for a job at Neshoba is a competitive venture. We started the school year with 19 new permanent teachers and 2 long-term subs who will be with us for the full year because they're replacing full year absences. Our 21 new teachers are a good mix of experienced teachers and those who are entering the profession. We've got 9 who are relatively new to the teaching field, 5 who are in their first 5 years of teaching, and 7 who have 6 or more years of teaching experience. That's a good mix of new and seasoned educators, and really that's what you want. 4 of our new teachers were promoted to their teaching positions after having already distinguished themselves as instructional assistants. So they have proven ability, and the principals have an opportunity to see their work. 12 of our new teachers have got a master's degree, and 1 has a doctorate. Most of the 8 who hold bachelor's degrees are well on their way to earning their master's degrees. We also welcomed 9 new instructional assistants who are all highly qualified. Several have master's degrees themselves, and many of them have teaching licenses or both. We have 4 additions to our extended learning staff and 1 new custodian. We have 2 new administrators. We have welcoming Mark Levine, who's our new assistant principal at Florence Sawyer, and our new part-time principal at the Hale Middle School, Patrick Perkins.
who's really not new to us at all.
Not new at all, but he's the oldest
coming back.
guy.
What would we do without Patrick Perkins? I mean, really, he's just amazing.
You shudder to think. At the end of August, our mentor coordinators, Karen Mayotte and Kim Rocha, in conjunction with the Departments of Teaching and Learning and Technology, organized and led our new teacher orientation program. All of our new teachers participated. We had 100% attendance. They met their mentors, they met the district leaders, they had their orientation to the district. The NREA, Kevin came and spoke to them. They got an overview of professional development, of teaching and learning, and the student information systems, Power School and Power Teacher. The reviews for our new teacher orientation are always positive, and I'd like to recognize our mentor co-coordinators, Karen Mayotte and Kim Rocha, and also the Department of Teaching and Learning for making that such a successful day. With the start of the new school year, 22 of our teachers reached the career milestone of professional teacher status. It's a significant accomplishment. It's similar to the former and maybe a little bit more familiar concept of tenure. It's awarded to those who have successfully completed 3 full licensed years of teaching. During those 3 years, they were observed and they're evaluated very closely. Each of the 22 has met Neshoba's high standards. They've received the recommendation of his or her principal, and they've been approved by the superintendent. Professional status is a really big deal in a teacher's career.
And we congratulated those 22 teachers at the high school on opening day and recognized them. Last week, we arranged again this year through Maya, our insurer, for several wellness programs for our employees at no cost. The first is a 5-week Fitbit challenge that's going to start on September 23rd. Maya will supply the participants with free Fitbits, or people can use their own. We have 97 of our employees signed up to participate in the challenge, which is going to be a fun and friendly, at least it starts friendly, competition among the communities. There'll be the Stowe, Lancaster, Bolton, and high school will be the four groups competing against one another. So if you happen to be in one of our buildings or we're up here in the offices and you see someone standing there and they're marching in place, you'll know that that's what they're doing. Then later in the month we're starting, it's an 8 or 10 week after school program called Namaste and Nutrition, which, as you might guess, is a combination of a yoga and a nutrition awareness type thing. It's always well subscribed. Maya also offers some online wellness programs. We recently had one on brain health, sugar awareness. We had one on hydration and water. They always have something about nutrition. And I think we're in the middle of one now on cholesterol. At the end, the employees can choose, if the employees who participate can choose a little gift, a water bottle or a yoga mat, or, that sort of thing. Those are very well received, and we're pleased to be able to continue those this year. I'd like to close by thanking my colleagues, Vicki Chartier and Darcy Wardwell. They always work hard keeping our office humming, but never so much than in the summertime. As an example, our teachers got their first paychecks. Mind you, school started on August 27th. They got their first paychecks on August 31st. So there were a lot of new people to onboard, to do their health insurance forms and their banking information and all their licensure and all their everything, and it was all entered. Everybody was in the system, and everyone got their paycheck on August 31st. So I'm really feel very lucky, to be working with people like Vicki and Darcy, because they really do yeoman's duty, especially in the summertime, although year round, really. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to update you on the exciting world of HR. And I wonder if you have any questions for me.
Questions for Anne Marie? No?
One of the other things that they do in the summer too is these offices work very closely. HR and the business office, they sit around this table because there's a lot you can imagine for the budget purposes and for making sure that everything is still exactly where it needs to be. They spend literally days around this table making sure and cross-referencing everything. It's a huge undertaking. So Darcy and Vicki do a great job, as do you, Anne Marie. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
And thank you. Thank you for the update. Okay, so now we have on the agenda school committee goals. I passed out the proposed goals, the draft of the goals to folks, and we had done an evaluation of where we think we are in terms of our operational protocols of governance, operations, member relations, financial, strategic planning and fiscal management, community relations, and conduct of meetings. So these are categories that MASC lays out and suggests ways to look at how we're doing in these areas. And again, I think this is the first year that we have done a formal evaluation and have set goals specific to the school committee. So again, this is a draft, and what I have done is, based on the results of the survey, put together these proposed goals for folks to consider, and in most cases have assigned either a committee, an individual, or a group to responsibility for them. So if we could go through them, and then I'll entertain comments or questions, and I've allotted 20 minutes to this on the agenda. So if we're not finished in 20 minutes, then we are going to stop at that point and pick it up.
It's 15
later
actually.
on. Oh, 15? Oh, then we better get going, huh?
Sorry, does anyone have an extra copy? I do
Oh,
not.
yes, I do, right here. Oops, sorry. Here you go. Okay. All right, so the first one under governance, and I think when I look at this, this is basically what the policy subcommittee's job is. So Leah and I are on the policy subcommittee, and we will be completing the policy review with MASC and bringing the policies to the committee for review and approval. So that's basically what we do. The new member orientation will include an orientation to the school committee, school committee policy manual, which is different than the school committee manual, and that will be my responsibility to make sure that there is attention paid to the whole policy aspect and the specifics of policy in addition to the other things that the school committee does. School committee will review the district improvement plan annually for alignment with the district's mission, vision, and core values. That's the school committee's responsibility, and we this year did that during an additional meeting over the summertime, and Brooke and I have actually parsed it out over several meetings after the superintendent's evaluation process. So that is the school committee's responsibility as well. Anything about governance, questions, comments? Yes, Leah.
I think the only thing that we were saying the last time we met was that the way that the district improvement plan achieves our check mark should be run in a way that we don't feel like we're kind of knocking you guys over. Maybe, right? So like the last meeting that we had, it was, here it is this okay? Whereas then we stepped back and said, maybe it's a better idea to say, here it is, take some time to think about it. Right,
Yes.
like it might be a two-step process.
Well, actually, what I mentioned is that you're absolutely right, and to have it, to do that work over 2 or 3 school committee meetings, instead of just having it on one, one meeting where we're expected to do everything.
Yeah.
So I have to go back with Brooke and look at, after the meetings, we go back and look at the planning calendar.
I see.
And so, but we did have discussions over the summer about doing, backing it up, having more time, but doing it during a school meeting. Okay? Mike, did you have?
No.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Operations, the superintendent, HR director, and chair will develop an evaluation of the new member orientation. So I think that's sort of self-explanatory and who's involved, and we will be, once it's complete, share it with the school committee. Personnel subcommittee will conduct an annual evaluation of the school committee manual, which is part of the charge of the PSC. The 2 big areas of responsibility for the PSC is the superintendent's evaluation process and also maintenance, if you will, of the school committee manual, and that includes surveying the committee about any additions or changes to it over the course of the year. So that's the responsibility of the PSC. Member relations, per school committee policy BAA, conduct a school committee self-evaluation, the results of which will be reviewed and discussed at the June workshop. We started this this year. We do have a policy BAA in our policy manual, but to the best of my knowledge, have not done a self-evaluation, so we will continue this process. And I will most likely send last year's protocol process to folks for feedback before I send out the evaluation for folks to complete. So I'll get a sense of if we need to tweak it in any way. Okay? Financial, strategic planning, and fiscal management. Annually and prior to the start of the budget development, school committee will be in service regarding the district's long-term financial strategic plan, constituencies involved in budget development, and how the school committee presents and advocates for the budget. So you will soon see that budget development starts like tomorrow, and the Budget and Warrant Committee does a lot of the work with Pat and with Brooke, and then brings things to our attention. But overall, I think to have a big picture understanding about how things are done and how the pieces fit together is important for us. And so I will talk with Brooke about scheduling something in the near future so that we have that big picture outlook. So that'll be a future agenda item, okay? The community relations, the school committee will review the district comprehensive communication plan and its components. So this is something we had, not this past year, but the previous year, had a communication committee and a communication plan was put in place. This year we approved a channels of communication protocol. What I would like us to look at is how everything fits together. And so we have to take a look at it and find a way to evaluate the effectiveness of all the different pieces of it. So that's something that I will be working with Brooke on to bring forward. The other piece of this is that this policy subcommittee will review the policy for citizens' comments and present recommendations to the school committee. So we do have a policy, what's the guidelines? BEDH for citizens' comments, public comments. And I know that among members of the committee, there's an interest in looking some other ways to get citizens' comments. And there's something that I'll speak to you about very shortly that might give us some additional face time with the public. Any changes or comments about the bullets under community relations? And then the last one, conduct of meetings. The only thing that really came up was this idea of looking at making the school committee meeting room conducive to productive discussion and decision making, and that would require an ad hoc committee to look into this and make recommendations. So no one is assigned to that. It would be volunteers. So if folks want to think about that and come back to it, if there's interest in doing that and having an ad hoc committee, then I would want to know. So do you want me to check in again? Or is anybody interested in being on an ad hoc committee to look at this topic?
Yeah.
So Joseph and Mary, okay. So we can connect on what the charge of the committee would be and what you need to do it. Thank you for doing that. Okay. So are there any questions, concerns, comments?
It's Kevin.
Oh, Kevin.
Oh, Kevin. Okay.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments about the goals? Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the goals for this year, the school committee goals for 2019, 2020?
I'll move.
Thanks, Joseph. Second? Second. Okay, thank you, Leah. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you so much. And now, we have a motion that is going to be made by a member. This is an example of something that a member asked to be placed on the agenda, and it has been placed there. And there is actually a protocol that is part of Robert's Rules of Order, and it's known as the main motion process. So the member makes the motion makes the motion, and then the motion is seconded. And then there is discussion or debate, and the member who introduces the motion starts the discussion, maybe provides information or gives an overview. And then the chair closes the discussion, states the question, and asks for a vote. So that's the process we're going to follow. And so at this point, I'm going to recognize Mary McCarthy to make her motion.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. I move that we include the Pledge of Allegiance as a standing agenda item following the call to order at all regular Neshoba Regional School District School Committee meetings.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Joseph. Okay, Mary?
All right. It seems especially fitting to be considering this motion on the anniversary of the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks on the United States of America. As we know, public schools were founded with a civic mission of educating students to be engaged citizens capable of contributing to the common good. Across the United States is a renewed emphasis on civic education. The new 2018 Massachusetts History and Social Science Curriculum Framework includes an increased emphasis on civics at all grade levels, including a new grade 8 course on civics. In my experience in education, school committee meetings began with standing and reciting in unison the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Many of our local town board meetings include the Pledge of Allegiance. According to MASC, many school committee meetings in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts include the Pledge of Allegiance. Not that the pledge isn't without some controversy. No one, including students in schools, can be required to recite the pledge in keeping with our First Amendment right to freedom of speech. As such, the Pledge of Allegiance can be considered as a civics lesson in itself. The Pledge of Allegiance remains as an example of our shared commitment to our democratic republic and our vision of liberty and justice for all. I look forward to our discussion and vote on this motion as I turn the floor back to our chairperson, Kathy.
Thank you, Mary. I thought you raised your hand. All right. Any discussion, comments? Steve?
Yes, I have 3 points I wish to make. Number one, having stood on the backloading dock of my company in Brooklyn 18 years ago today and seeing the second plane crash into the World Trade Center, where just a few years before I had an office, was quite an experience and one I will never forget. Number two, being a veteran, and probably the only veteran, maybe, in this room at the present time.
Steve, you need to speak up, please.
And probably being the only veteran in this room at this time, I would also like, as my third point, to say, unfortunately, the pledge to the flag, as has been said, has become somewhat controversial, and the wrapping of the flag by certain political groups in this country leaves me kind of cold. And while I grew up not only saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag every day, but the Our Father every morning, and I don't think any of us would have a point or try to make a point that we should go back to that particular recitation. I am against that, against having the pledge to the flag at the beginning of our meetings.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to.
Joseph.
I want to tell my colleague, and I respect what my colleague from Still has to say, but I cannot support Dr. McCarthy's motion more vociferously. To me, this is more of an equity issue. My understanding is that the protocol in this district is that we ask our students to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag each morning. If I recall, at our graduation ceremony, we also stood and recited the pledge. I talked to Mary a little bit about this back before we were on the school committee. To me, the pledge is more iconic than anything else, and I do understand that it becomes a bit of a controversy. But to me, it's always been a part of the American educational system. It's as iconic as the yellow school bus and the red apple. I fully support Dr. McCarthy's motion, mostly because I don't want to be a member who would ask any student in this district to do anything that I myself would not do.
Other comments? I just want to make one comment. And first of all, I want to thank you for your service. And I'm aware of sometimes the political winds that blow. And I do want to reiterate that one of the most fundamental rights that we have is freedom of expression and freedom of speech. And I have, in watching sometimes the landscape out there, become distressed when the feeling that everyone needs to conform to a certain point of view is met with derision, and that's not what we're about. And you're right, Massachusetts state law says that schools have to offer the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's expected that people either say it or sit respectfully while it is recited, but no one is required to say it. So I just don't want this to become a political thing. Everyone has their own view of what is right for them, and if there is any more comments or discussion, I would like to entertain them right now. If not, I would like to move the vote. Any more questions, comments, discussion? Okay. All those in favor of reciting the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of each regular school committee meeting after the call to order, please raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. The last item under new business is something that I have a citizen comment discussion, and I see it along the lines of improving communication. And this is something that I actually picked up at the NASC conference that folks talked about. There was a lot of discussion about citizens' comments and what folks do. And by and large, most school districts do as we do, and if there are to be citizens' comments, they are said, they are directed toward an agenda item. And we've had discussions about, what we want to allow on this committee. And a couple of school districts actually call something school committee office hours, because it's not an hour. But let me read what I wrote. Per our policy BEDH, our school committee meetings have citizens' comments, address agenda items at the MASC Summer Institute. Districts with the same policy, some districts with the same policy said they have office hours held by one or two members where citizens can bring forward other issues. My idea would be to pilot holding school committee quote-unquote office time prior to each school committee meeting from 5:30 to 5:45 and apply the same policy that we have for citizens' comments during the school committee meeting. The pilot would run from October to December. Elaine and I, and you said you would alternate with me, right? Okay, yeah. Elaine and I will alternate chairing these sessions, and no more than 2 other school committee meetings can join us. Ideally, like one other person to join Elaine or myself. Topics will be shared with the school committee. So we would have something probably depending, because I think that you have your budget warrant committee meetings.
Usually at 5, yes.
Usually at 5, and we would do it, but we would find a place to have it either here or in the teaching and learning conference room, which is right below us. And people would be able to bring up other issues that are not on the agenda, but we would apply the same rules. There would be no disparagement of personnel, no sharing of personal information. But it would be a way to allow folks, I mean, people can still email us and that, but there are times I think when people just want to tell us stuff. So I would like to see what folks think about this idea. Yes, Leah.
So I think that I've had now 2 opportunities to meet with constituents, and I think it's a great idea. I think that when I did do it, Elaine joined me at one point. People felt heard. They thought it was an opportunity to express things that they wouldn't otherwise know where to bring it. And oftentimes there was really no need for it to go any further. And so I think that it's like a salve almost for people. So I totally support it.
Yeah, you know, I'll say this. I will fully support the endeavor. But I will say that it is a bit onerous to me that this district, unlike many other bodies of politics in the Commonwealth, does not have a public participation, public comment portion of its agenda. We do, but it's limited to agenda items. In many other jurisdictions in the Commonwealth, it is not. And it is an opportunity for individuals to come not only before their body politic, be it board of selectmen, school committee, or what have you, but in front of their entire town, because it is generally broadcast via local cable access to, voice their issues, concerns, and what have you. I'll be honest with you, it can sometimes be a very high adventure type of agenda item. But overall, in my experience, it's been generally productive. People are generally contrite and respectful. And there are some occasions where things get a little out of control. By example, I think the Native School Committee recently had an issue in 2018 regarding public participation that actually went to the Superior Court, and the Superior Court actually sided with the participants as opposed to the district committee. But if this is, if this is what's proposed, I would fully support it. But as one member or 1/7 or 1/8 of this committee, I frankly would welcome full public participation on any issue that any member of the district feels they wish to voice to the district committee.
Well, like I said, when we looked at our goals, one of the goals of the policy committee would be to look at the policy. As our policy is written, it addresses items on the agenda. So it's open, but before we address the policy issue, this would be something that
Right.
we could
And
pilot.
it sounds to me that this is a pot. This may be where we end up, or it may be a stepping stone to something else. So in that regard, I would be fully supportive of it.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, that's just like sort of exactly what I was going to say. Because we have a goal for the year to think about this, to borrow a term from Brooke, thoughtfully. I think that that's going to take some time, no matter what the end result of it is. And in the meantime, I'm all for trying some things, putting some stuff out there, and just trying it, doing some experiments, and seeing what works. There's not going to be anything that works for everyone, either all of us as committee members or the entire community. But if we put some stuff out there, maybe we'll figure out what works while we're doing the official policy process.
Mike?
If this is indeed a pilot for, I think you said a couple of months?
October, November, December.
Okay, so 3 months. Is this something that could be reported back to the school committee?
Absolutely,
In terms of the
yeah.
feedback that you've gotten and sort of the impressions, what has worked, what challenges are presented?
Certainly, and just as during citizens' comments, we're quite aware of the topics that are brought forward, and we don't engage in discussion, but something may be referred to Brooke to do some more work on, or for us to get more information on. So it would be the same thing at the, I think the first time we would do it would be October 9th, at the end of the meeting, maybe during correspondence or even during citizens' comments. We would just mention the topics that were brought up and what the disposition might be. So it would have visibility to the community. Leah?
I would ask to just keeping the end in mind. So what is the objective? I think the objective is to improve transparency with the community, give community members an opportunity to communicate more directly.
Mhm.
And so therefore, in order to measure whether or not it's effective, you need to I think we need to think through how can we like survey people on its effectiveness.
Mhm.
Because I don't think that we would be able to judge if it was an effective method in
Mhm.
isolation. We would need to ask constituents, hey everybody, we communicated that this was available to you. Did you take advantage of it? Why didn't you take advantage? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't want to, I'd like to think about that, because when you think about it, our constituents is every single person in all 3 towns. All right?
And you wouldn't have to collect data from every person, but at least offer the opportunity for them to weigh in on its effectiveness.
Well, I think that there'd have to be a way to do that, and
Yeah.
I really haven't thought that through yet, but what the heck. Mary?
So I do think it's a good idea. I think that it's worth trying. But I also am not used to citizens' comments where people, I haven't even been on committee for very long, but I did come to meetings even before I was on committee. And time after time, citizens came to meetings to talk about something and then read the policy that it has to be something that's on the agenda, so they really couldn't talk then. And that has not been my experience. And I know we've talked about this, and it opens up the whole world in a way. However, I think when people make the effort to come to a meeting, and whatever they've had to do, childcare, timing, they get here, then they find out, well, next time you come, look at the agenda ahead of time, because citizens' comments are only for that. So I would like us to look at that again.
Sure.
Because,
Yeah.
but I do think that this idea certainly is worthwhile, and I was going to echo what Mike said about some way of whatever is talked about that can be brought to committee, that you would bring it to committee.
Absolutely. We allow 15 minutes for citizens' comments. And I think that if you have, in many districts, they give priority to people who want to address things that are on the agenda. And then if whatever time period, and most districts have 15 minutes that they allow, some 20, then that's it. Because when you look at, we're already 10 minutes behind schedule, but that's okay. But there was one community that lets public comments, citizens' comments, go as long as it needs to go. And the work that we need to do, there's a lot of work we want to hear from people. I think with the advent of email, there's a lot more opportunity to communicate directly. But I think that all the issues that are being raised are things that we can look at when we look at the policy. But this is a good first step, and we'll see how it works. And I think we'll give feedback. I'm not quite sure how it would work, but we'll figure out a way to do it.
Some ideas.
Mm-hmm. Then I'd love to hear them, but not now. Okay.
I think similarly, or sort of bookend what Leah was talking about, we're going to need a way to communicate that this is available as well.
I
and to
know.
put something together.
The members of the press are here, so maybe at the next meeting we'll have something more concrete to put together. I'll put together a proposal for next time. And this is informal, it's a trial, it's not part of our regular meeting, so we don't have to vote on it. I just wanted to share that with you because I'm aware of what the concerns were from members of the committee, and so I'll put together a plan, a proposal, and Leah's going to let me know how best to evaluate it. Okay? Super. Thank you so much. Okay, there is no old business. Subcommittee reports. Mike, do you have a report for us?
Yeah, the Personnel Subcommittee received a draft of the Superintendent's Annual Plan. We reviewed the draft of 4 goals, a district improvement goal, 2 professional practice goals, and 1 student learning goal. 89 members of the Personnel Committee submitted some feedback, and we're going to be probably meeting multiple times prior to the recommendation of the school committee, but I think we're still on track to do that by the first meeting in October.
You're not going to be here. So I was gonna email you that on the down low, but since you brought, so we'll have to schedule it for the 23rd.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Steve?
You're not gonna be here in the first meeting in October?
Correct.
Never mind.
Yeah, all right.
It's Yom Kippur, so.
Yeah.
So that means everybody else has to be here
Is,
that night.
does anyone else have a conflict with the 9th? Okay, and if anyone else cannot be here, you need to let me know as soon as possible. All right, thanks for letting us know. Just to add you to my list of absentees for that date. Okay, thanks. Okay, Steve, budget warrant.
Budget warrant, we had kind of an aborted meeting earlier this afternoon. I guess
No,
people didn't remember
never got any notice.
that it was set in June that we would meet at 4 o'clock today.
Be that as it may.
Be that as it may. So I sat with Brooke and Pat, and we went over a few things. I had a few questions on the numbers. Basically, we're coming out exactly where we felt we were going to be coming out. We will have $800 and some odd thousand to put back into E&D, although we also have $750,000 we'll be taking out of E&D for the 2019-2020 budget. Other than that, we'll see a lot of the final numbers, I guess, at the next meeting, and we're in good shape as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. So it wasn't an official meeting,
No,
so
there was no
just an
official meeting,
update?
so there were no minutes
Okay,
taken.
so, Mike and Steve, do you have the dates for your, meetings for throughout the
Well,
year?
our next meeting will be before the next school committee meeting. I think that's the 23rd
Okay, but,
at 5 o'clock.
okay. So, my point is that I had asked, at our meeting in June for the chairs to give Alita the meetings for the year, so they're part of our school committee calendar, so everybody's aware.
Well, that's,
Go ahead.
all right. I'm just thinking it's difficult because we really don't get into the budget. Once a month, we look at the numbers from the previous month, but we really don't get into the forward-looking numbers until January,
Okay.
after the budget seminar.
So is what you're telling me that at your meetings, you'll set a date for the following meeting?
Yes,
Okay. So do you have a date for your next meeting?
I just said the 23rd of September.
Thank you. I remember now that you said
You're
that.
welcome.
Okay, yes, Mary?
So I took the minutes at the subcommittee meeting, the
So it's
budget
25th.
warrants
I'm sorry, excuse me.
subcommittee meeting minutes. And the meeting was to be at 5 o'clock before the Neshoba school committee meeting. However, because we had, and they never
So
heard anything.
that's okay. It wasn't-
But
yeah.
I don't want that to happen because there was no one there. There were three of us.
Right.
I
and
understand.
so
Neither one of
that's-
us knew, and I took the minutes.
Okay.
So,
So moving forward, we will make sure
I
that
will send out an
things
email
are
for everybody.
communicated in a
Thank you.
timely fashion.
Absolutely.
I would have been there.
Okay, no harm, no foul. Okay. Consent agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the September 11th, 2019 consent agenda, including the meeting minutes of June 5th, 2019, roles and responsibilities workshop minutes of June 19th, 2019, district improvement plan workshop minutes of August 7th, 2019, and the warrant of September 13th, 2019.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I'm going to give that to Joe because you've seconded the one. Okay, all in favor? Okay. So let me see where we're at. Correspondence. Items to be considered for next or future agendas. All right. So what do we have? I have to, okay, no, we don't have to do that. Future, yes, Mike.
I think we said a proposal for the comment discussion proposal. for the next meeting?
Oh, yes,
So a
okay.
formalized proposal?
Yes, thanks.
And you mean for the
Citizens.
pre-meeting,
Yes.
not the formal policy?
No, not the policy, that's gonna start at policy. Okay, proposal, citizens' comments. Okay. Yes.
Yes, I have something, and it will take perhaps 30 seconds of the superintendent's time at the next meeting. It'll probably take 30 seconds of her time in the interim period between now and the next meeting. But I did have a constituent request for some information regarding possibility, if one does not exist, of creation of a master calendar for the district. What this constituent advised me was that in trying to organize anything within the district, sometimes they have to go to the different schools to look at their calendars to make sure there's no conflict.
Okay.
And they've asked for some possibility of a master. I don't know if that exists already, but
Actually, we have looked into this. We've already tried this. I'm not sure where we landed, but it seems to me like we tried to do this even this last time go around with the, we support the notion. We haven't got the means yet to do it, but we support the notion of doing that.
in that regard, Madam Chairman, I would just withdraw my request. The superintendent's already aware of this, and so.
Okay, but I would want to follow up with, I will follow up with the superintendent.
Okay.
Okay. We need to plan an update of the special education,
Just a sped update.
yeah, the SPED update to include program evaluation. We are going,
I think that's in the October. I think that's
Okay, we'll just
scheduled
have
for
to
in
look.
October. Yeah.
okay. Does anybody have anything else for future or next?
I guarantee there'll be other
I'm
items.
sure. Leah?
A quick question, this might just be me being new. We had a constituent request to consider flipping the start times of high school students and elementary school students and that whole
So
rabbit hole.
the topic is school start times,
Yeah.
okay?
That,
I don't know if it's already been discussed.
no, it hasn't, and it's an enormous
So-
undertaking.
Surely.
Okay,
Lots of
when
research.
we do this, I think we can identify things we want to talk about, but it's not the appropriate time to, and I don't mean this as an admonishment to anybody, just that in the interest of time, we can take down the topic. I will talk with Brooke about it, and then we can come around, okay? Great. There was something else, master calendar, school start times, the SPED, special education update. Was there something else? Okay, I know what we wanted to do. So we're looking at the planning calendar is in your materials if you want to look. So for next time, we have the guidance update, the district improvement plan.
Yeah.
We approved it, but it hasn't been presented at a school committee meeting. The business manager reports, the treasurer report, middle school athletic revolving funds review, fiscal year end report.
I think we did the middle school tonight, right?
No.
Oh, no, we didn't do
No,
the
these are
middle
about
school tonight, that's right.
revolving funds.
Yeah.
Fiscal year end report, year end revenue update, dormant revolving funds transfer, and student activity new old updates.
That's going to be a lot for next meeting.
Yes, okay,
Without adding one more thing.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It's also on there, maybe you have over copies of middle school DC trips.
Oh,
Is that on
Yeah.
there?
not on this one.
Second one down.
Middle school.
Middle school, oh no.
Oh, no, that's the revolving fund.
Middle
Okay,
school
middle school.
DC trip approvals.
I must have an outdated, thing. Okay, trip approvals, that's there.
That's going to be a long meeting.
Not if I can help it.
So, Kathy,
Yes.
not for the next meeting, but someplace on the planning calendar, we'll be looking at representation in terms of.
Yes, that's on there. It's regional
Right.
agreement,
Oh, that's
SC
okay.
membership.
Okay.
That's what that
Good.
is. Okay, anything else? Okay, so Elaine is going to make the motion to enter into executive session.
All right. I move the school committee enter into executive session at 8:25 p.m. pursuant to MGL Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body and the chair so declares. George King v. Neshoba Regional School District and Patricia Marone, civil docket number 18CV643A, executive session to include Superintendent Clengy, Assistant Superintendent Dr. McGuire, Business Manager Pat Marone, and Legal Counsel Kevin Freytag. Committee will adjourn in executive session.
Second.
Who seconded?
Oh,
Who seconded?
who seconded? That's the motion.
You did. You just seconded it.
I did? I didn't think I could, but okay, whatever.
I will if you want.
No, no. Sign me up. Okay, roll call. Alita, can you take, oh,
Dr.
Steve, go ahead.
Dr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mike Orish?
Here?
Myself, yes. Leah Viverito?
Yes.
Elaine Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Kathy Kodiak?
Yes.
And Joseph Gleason?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we take a 5-minute